For years she thought she was clumsy and sick. It was poison to keep her from discovering she's. Alara had always believed she was fragile. Every stumble, every fainting spell, every cough had convinced her that she was clumsy, weak, and somehow broken. She had grown up in a small, shadowed cottage at the edge of the kingdom, under the care of her distant aunt, Lady Marwyn, who seemed kind on the surface but carried a cold, unyielding authority. "You must rest, Alara," her aunt would say, guiding her away from chores or hiding her from the sun. "Your body is delicate, you cannot risk it." Alara listened. She obeyed. She learned to fear her own strength as if every breath could betray her. She spent her days indoors, watching the wind dance through the trees outside, longing for a freedom she did not know she deserved. Yet there were moments, strange, fleeting moments, when something inside her stirred. When she dropped a glass and it did not shatter. When she touched a wilted flower and it trembled, almost alive. When she stood before a mirror and her reflection flickered, as if another version of herself watched back. She never told anyone. She was afraid. The villagers whispered about her, calling her the sickly girl, shaking their heads when she passed by. Some pitied her, others scorned her. Alara learned to smile politely, bow her head, and shrink into the shadows. She never questioned why she felt different. She believed Lady Marwyn. She was weak. But fate has a way of bending even the most careful lies. One evening, as the sun bled gold into the horizon, Alara wandered farther than usual. The village lay behind her now, and in front stretched the forest, dark and inviting. She had always been warned never to enter, yet an inexplicable pull tugged at her heart. Her feet carried her past twisted roots, tangled vines, and the murmuring of the trees. She stumbled, but instead of pain, a warmth spread through her legs, steadying her. Her heartbeat calmed, her chest lifted, and for a moment she felt strong. At the heart of the forest she found a hidden garden, as though the world had forgotten it. Flowers glimmered with colors she had never seen, vines glowed faintly under the dimming sky, and a soft fragrance filled the air. Something in her stirred, a recognition she could not name. She reached out to touch a silver-leafed plant, and instantly the air shimmered. A figure appeared, cloaked in darkness, taller than any human she had ever seen. His face was hidden beneath a hood, but his presence was commanding, almost regal. "Alara," he said, his voice low and smooth, like a river over stones. "You are not what they have told you." Alara stumbled backward, fear mingling with curiosity. Who are you?" "I am a guardian," he replied. "And you are the heir they tried to hide." Heir." Her voice trembled. She did not understand, but something deep within her seemed to awaken. "They poisoned you, bound you, kept you believing you were weak," he said. "But that is not your truth. You are stronger than you know. Your body, your spirit, everything about you has been restrained for a reason that belongs to the kingdom and to your destiny." Alara shook her head. "No, I'm just sick, that's all I am, always sick." The figure's presence pressed upon her, yet there was no judgment, only a strange, unwavering certainty. "Look at your hands," he said. "Do they tremble now?" She glanced down. Her hands were steady. Her heart raced, but not with weakness, only excitement, a spark she had never known. I don't understand," she whispered. "You will," the guardian said. "But not yet. First, you must survive the lies they have fed you. You must discover the power that is yours by right. And when you do, you will see what has been hidden from you since the day you were born." Alara felt a sudden rush of energy, her limbs moving with strength she had never possessed. She tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat. Her chest heaved, not with illness but with life. Then, as suddenly as he appeared, the figure was gone, leaving her alone among the glowing flowers. The forest seemed silent now, holding its breath. Alara did not know how long she sat there, trembling, staring at her own hands. She had never felt anything like this. She felt alive, powerful, terrifyingly alive. Night fell and the forest grew dark and cold. She knew she could not stay, but something inside her urged her to linger. She could feel it, the promise of a life she had never imagined. When she returned home, Lady Marwen was waiting. Her aunt's smile was sweet, but her eyes were sharp, calculating. "Back so late, child?" she asked, taking Alara's arm. "You must be more careful. The forest is dangerous at night. A delicate girl like you," Alara flinched. Delicate, weak, words that had haunted her since childhood. She wanted to speak, to tell her aunt what had happened, but fear clamped her tongue. She could not. That night, as she lay in her small bed, she thought of the garden, the silver-leafed plant, and the cloaked figure. She thought of the words he had spoken. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in years she did not feel sick. She felt different. And yet questions swirled. If she were not weak, then why had Lady Marwen kept her hidden? Why had she been poisoned with lies? Who were her real parents? And most importantly, what did it mean to be an heir? Sleep came fitfully. Alara dreamt of shadowed halls, of golden crowns, of voices calling her name. She dreamed of power and responsibility, of danger and freedom. She dreamed of the cloaked figure who whispered again and again, "They lied, you are not what they said. You are more." The next morning, she awoke to find a single silver leaf on her bedside table, shimmering faintly in the dawn light. It was as though the forest itself had followed her home, leaving a reminder that her life was about to change. At breakfast, Lady Marwen fussed over her, warning her not to go outside, not to run, not to touch anything. But Alara's mind was elsewhere. Her fingers brushed the silver leaf in her pocket, and she felt the strength rising within her once more. A new determination settled over her. She would no longer accept the life they had given her. She would discover her truth, no matter the cost. But she was not yet ready to understand the dangers that awaited her. The kingdom was ruled by a king who feared magic, who would kill anyone who threatened his power. And Alara was not just anyone. She was the heir they had tried to erase from history. The first step of her journey had begun, though she did not yet know it. The forest, the guardian, the silver leaf, they were all calling her forward. And somewhere in the shadows of the kingdom, eyes watched her. Eyes that had seen the heir's birth, eyes that had conspired to keep her weak, and eyes that now wondered if the fragile, clumsy girl they had known was about to become something far greater than anyone had imagined. Alara took a deep breath. She felt her strength, her heart, and her mind aligning for the first time in her life. She was still frightened. She was still small in the world, but she was no longer weak. And that realization, as terrifying as it was beautiful, marked the beginning of a story that would shake kingdoms, break curses, and reveal truths long hidden. Because Alara was not what they said. She was more. And soon, the world would know it too. The next morning, Alara awoke to a strange mixture of fear and excitement. The silver leaf still rested beside her bed, glowing faintly in the early sunlight. Its presence reminded her that she was no longer the fragile girl everyone believed her to be. But she could not yet understand the full extent of her powers, or the dangers that awaited her. Breakfast was tense, as always. Lady Marwen hovered nearby, fussing over her, reminding her not to overexert herself, not to step outside, not to reach for anything dangerous. Alara barely listened. Her thoughts were elsewhere, tangled with the visions from the forest and the mysterious cloaked figure who had called her the hidden heir. As she finished her meal, a shadow fell across the room. Alara looked up and froze. Standing at the doorway was the figure from the forest, tall, cloaked, and impossibly calm. His presence filled the small cottage, though he spoke not a word at first. "Alara," he said, his voice firm yet gentle, "you must come with me." Alara's heart skipped a beat. Who are you?" she whispered, trembling. "I am Kale," he replied. "I am here to guide you. The world you know is built on lies. The sickness, the clumsiness, it was not yours, it was theirs." "They?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "Who?" "The ones who feared you, who tried to keep you weak," Kale said. "The king, your bloodline, the poison that has held you back. All of it was meant to stop you from discovering your true self." Alara's mind swirled. Her head ached, partly from fear, partly from the rush of new possibilities. I don't understand. Why me? Kale stepped closer, lowering his hood to reveal sharp, strong features and eyes that seemed to see into her very soul. Because you are the rightful heir, he said. Your mother was taken from you. The kingdom feared what you could become. They fed you lies, controlled your life, kept you small. But you are not small. You are powerful, and if you do not learn your true strength, others will destroy it before it can awaken. Alara felt a trembling energy rise within her. She wanted to run, to hide, to pretend nothing had changed, but something inside her would not allow it. She felt the same energy she had felt in the forest, the power that made her body steady, her mind sharp, her heart alive. Come with me, Kale said again, holding out his hand. There is much you need to see, to learn, and to remember. For a moment, fear battled curiosity, but curiosity won. Alara placed her hand in his. The touch was electric, grounding, and for the first time she felt someone truly see her. Not the sickly, clumsy girl the world had labeled her, but the girl she could become. They walked through the forest in silence. The air grew heavier as they approached the castle, a grand, imposing structure that loomed against the sky like a shadow of stone. Its walls were lined with ivy, its towers disappearing into mist, and its gates guarded by stone statues that seemed almost alive. Kale led her inside through a secret entrance, hidden behind a tapestry in a forgotten hallway. The castle was not what she had imagined. It was quiet, yet alive, filled with the hum of magic. Candles flickered even in rooms without windows, shadows danced on the walls, and a faint warmth touched her skin as if the very castle welcomed her. This place, Alara whispered, it feels alive. It is, Kale said. Magic flows through these walls, binding the kingdom together, but the magic is incomplete. It has been poisoned, corrupted by fear and lies, and only you can restore it. Alara's stomach churned with a mix of awe and fear. Restore it, me? Yes, Kale said. But first you must learn to control what has been locked inside you. Your powers are growing, and if you cannot master them, they may consume you. Over the next days, Kale began her training. It was unlike anything Alara had ever experienced. He taught her to sense the hidden threads of magic in the air, to feel the energy that connected the world, to manipulate light and shadow with thought alone. At first, Alara struggled. Her hands trembled, her focus faltered, and her body resisted. But Kale was patient, guiding her with a firm hand and quiet encouragement. Slowly, she began to understand. A flower would bloom at her touch. A candle would flare brightly, responding to her concentration. Even her reflection in a mirror would shimmer when she passed her fingers over it. You are more than you know, Kale said one evening, his voice soft in the candle-lit chamber. And you must trust yourself. Doubt will weaken you. Alara nodded, though doubt lingered. The memory of Lady Marwen's warnings, the years of lies, and the fear of her own strength made her hesitate. But each time she faltered, Kale's steady presence reminded her of what she could be. As her powers grew, so did her curiosity about her past. One night she slipped into the castle's hidden library, a vast room of ancient books and scrolls. The walls were lined with tomes that glowed faintly as though alive. Her fingers brushed the spines and a book fell open before her. It was a journal, her mother's journal. Alara's heart raced as she read the flowing handwriting, learning of her mother's bravery, her love for the kingdom, and her tragic exile. The words spoke of a child born to inherit not only the throne but the power to break the king's dark curse, a power that had been suppressed by those who feared it. Tears filled Alara's eyes. Her mother had believed in her, even when the world had not, even when she herself had not, and now that belief was hers to carry forward. Suddenly, a shadow moved across the room. Alara spun around, heart pounding, and found Kale standing in the doorway. His eyes softened as he approached her. You should not be alone here, he said gently. The castle is not safe. There are those who would harm you even now. I had to see, Alara whispered. I had to know who I am and who I come from, Kale nodded. And now you know, and now we must prepare. The king's agents are already searching for you. They sense your awakening. Alara swallowed hard. Fear gripped her, but it was mixed with something new, a fierce determination. She would not hide, she would not be weak. She would rise. That night Kale took her to a quiet courtyard under the moonlight. The air was cool, the stars bright, and the world seemed still. Tonight, he said, you will learn more about yourself than ever before. Alara watched as he lifted his hand and a small flame danced across his palm. Then he passed it to her. She hesitated, then let it flow through her fingers. The flame twisted and grew, but instead of burning her, it danced along her skin, warm and alive. You see, Kale said softly, it responds to you. You are its master, not its servant. Alara smiled, a small, tentative smile. She had never felt so powerful, so free. But as the flame flared brightly, illuminating her face, she noticed a shadow at the edge of the courtyard. A figure cloaked in darkness, watching. Her heart skipped a beat. Kale's hand tightened around hers. You are not alone, he said, and soon they will come. We must be ready. The days that followed were filled with training, learning, and discovery. Alara's powers grew stronger each day, and so did her bond with Kale. There was a quiet understanding between them, a connection deeper than words, a trust forged in the fires of awakening. Yet the danger was always present. Whispers of the hidden air had begun to spread through the castle. Servants, guards, and even noble courtiers spoke in hushed tones, fearing the return of the child who had been erased. Alara learned to move through the castle like a shadow, unseen but aware. She practiced her powers in secret, healing minor wounds, lighting dark corners, and sensing the presence of others. Each discovery filled her with awe and fear. She was becoming more than she had ever imagined. One evening, Kale brought her to a chamber she had not seen before. It was filled with mirrors, reflecting endless versions of herself. This is the chamber of truth, he said. Here you will face yourself. Not the weak, sickly girl they made you believe in, but the one who is truly you. Alara stepped inside. Her reflection shimmered and shifted, showing her not as fragile or broken, but as radiant and strong, her eyes alight with power. She reached out to touch the glass, and the reflection smiled back. You see, Kale whispered, this is who you are meant to be. And this is only the beginning. But as she stood there, a sudden chill ran through the chamber. The mirrors trembled. A shadow passed across the glass. Alara's heart raced. Someone or something was watching. And from the darkness, a whisper reached her ears. The air has awakened. She must be stopped. Alara turned, but there was no one there. Only Kale watching her, concern etched into his face. They know, he said quietly, and soon they will come for you. Alara clenched her fists, feeling the power thrumming through her veins. Fear still lingered, but it was now tempered with courage. She would not run. She would not hide. She would face whatever was coming, and she would survive because she was not weak. She was powerful. She was the heir, and the kingdom would soon remember her name. The days after her awakening were both exhilarating and terrifying for Alara. She could feel the power within her growing stronger, yet with each surge, a shadow of doubt crept into her heart. The whispers from the castle walls had not stopped. Strange movements in the corridors, servants who seemed uneasy, and guards whose eyes lingered too long reminded her that danger was near. The kingdom had sensed her awakening, and soon it would act. Kale continued her training with quiet intensity. You must control it, he said, guiding her through another exercise in the courtyard. Your power is no longer small, Alara. One mistake, and it could destroy not only you but everything around you. Alara nodded, her chest rising and falling with determination. She focused, summoning the energy that coursed through her. Light flickered in her hands like liquid gold, bending and swirling at her will. This time it did not burn, it obeyed. You are improving, Kale said, his usual stoic expression softening. Much faster than I expected. Alara smiled faintly, but her eyes were troubled. Kale, I can feel the curse in the kingdom. Something dark, something heavy. It's tied to me, isn't it? Kale's expression hardened. Yes, the king's power is not natural. He has bound himself to a dark magic, a curse that has kept him alive and strong for longer than any mortal should be. But it also weakened the kingdom. Only one with your bloodline, one with a pure heart, can break it. Alara's stomach twisted. The weight of her destiny pressed on her like a storm. And if I fail, she whispered. You will not fail, Kale replied firmly. But you must trust yourself. You must believe in the strength that has been hidden for so long. Even as he spoke, Alara could not ignore the growing tension within the castle. Courtiers whispered behind closed doors, their eyes darting toward her. Servants exchanged nervous glances, and Kale himself seemed more tense than ever. It was as if the very stones of the castle were aware of her presence, trembling in anticipation of what was to come. One evening, Kale led her to a secluded chamber deep within the castle. The walls were lined with ancient mirrors, each reflecting not just her image but faint, shifting shadows. This is the chamber of reflection, he explained. It shows not only who you are but who you might become. You must face yourself fully if you are to awaken your true power. Alara stepped inside, her heart pounding. She gazed at the mirrors and saw multiple versions of herself, weak, strong, frightened, radiant, all layered over each other. As she concentrated, the images began to merge, and she felt a sudden surge of energy. A voice whispered in her mind, soft and melodic. You are more than you know, stronger than you have ever imagined, she gasped. The voice was familiar, yet distant. It carried warmth, like the touch of someone who believed in her completely. Kale placed a hand on her shoulder. Focus. Do not be afraid. Alara drew a deep breath and extended her hands. Light poured from her fingertips, filling the chamber with a golden glow. The mirrors reflected not just her form, but her power, blinding and beautiful. For a moment she felt invincible. But then the shadows shifted. A cold wind swept through the chamber and the mirrors cracked, sending shards of light scattering across the walls. A figure appeared in the shadows, tall and menacing, cloaked in darkness. Alara, the figure hissed, voice echoing. The kingdom will remain mine, you cannot stop me. Alara's heart raced, but she stood tall, summoning her courage. I am not weak, she said, her voice steady. I am the heir, and I will not let you win. The figure stepped closer, and Alara felt a surge of power unlike anything before. Her body thrummed with energy and her hands glowed brighter. The shadow recoiled, but then it laughed, a sound that chilled her to the bone. You have power, it said, but power without control is dangerous. It will destroy everything you love. Kale moved beside her, his hand brushing hers in a gesture of reassurance. You are ready, Alara, he said softly. Trust yourself. Alara nodded. She took a step forward, then another, and raised her hands. Light surged outward, filling the room and pushing the shadow back. The figure shrieked and vanished into the darkness, leaving behind only a faint echo of its voice. This is not over. The chamber fell silent. Alara's breathing was heavy, but her eyes shone with determination. She had faced the shadow and survived. She had used her power not just to defend herself, but to protect the castle, the kingdom, and the people she had not even met yet. Kale studied her with a mixture of pride and concern. You are stronger than I imagined, he said. But this is only the beginning. The king's curse will not be broken easily. There are forces that will stop at nothing to keep you from fulfilling your destiny. Alara's mind raced. The weight of her role as the heir, the power that had been hidden from her, and the danger that surrounded her pressed on her like a storm. Yet beneath the fear, a new strength began to grow, a resolve to face whatever came, to fight for her kingdom, and to discover the truth of her mother's legacy. In the following days, the tension in the castle escalated. Servants whispered of strange occurrences, guards reported flickering shadows in the halls, and the courtiers grew restless. Alara could sense it all, her powers attuned to the subtle shifts in the kingdom's energy. One night while practicing her abilities in the courtyard, she sensed a presence watching her. She turned and saw a figure lurking in the shadows, a spy, she realized, sent by the king to observe her awakening. Before she could act, Kale appeared, his expression grim. "We must be cautious," he said. "They are aware of your powers, and soon they will move against you directly." Alara's heart pounded. She had known this moment would come, yet the reality was more frightening than she had imagined. She had to prepare, not just herself, but the people she cared for, the kingdom she had yet to claim. As the days passed, Kale continued to train her, pushing her limits and guiding her through the intricacies of her magic. He taught her to sense the emotions of others, to heal minor wounds, to manipulate the energy around her. Each lesson brought new challenges, but also new confidence. Alara could feel herself growing, not just in power, but in understanding of her own identity. At the same time, her bond with Kale deepened. They worked together, sparred together, and shared quiet moments in the castle's hidden corridors. There was an unspoken trust between them, a connection that went beyond words. Kale's presence was a constant reassurance, a reminder that she was not alone in facing the dangers ahead. Yet even as she grew stronger, the shadows of the past and the threats of the present loomed over her. One evening, while exploring a hidden passage in the castle, she discovered a chamber filled with relics and artifacts, objects that hummed with ancient magic. Among them, she found a golden crown, delicate and intricately carved. Alara approached it, her hands trembling. As she lifted the crown, she felt a surge of energy, memories of her mother flooding her mind. She saw visions of a queen, brave and kind, who had been forced into exile, and who had left behind a legacy of courage and power. Tears filled Alara's eyes. Her mother had believed in her, even when the world had tried to erase her. And now it was her turn to carry that legacy forward, to embrace the power that had been hidden from her for so long. Suddenly, the chamber grew cold. Shadows twisted and coalesced, forming into a dark figure that loomed over her. Its presence was oppressive, filled with malice and power. "You are awakening," the figure said, its voice a cold whisper. "But you are not ready. Your power is dangerous, untrained, uncontrolled. It will destroy everything you love if you are not careful." Alara's heart raced, but she stood tall. She summoned the energy within her, letting it flow through her hands, through her body, through her very soul. Light erupted, filling the chamber, and the shadow recoiled, hissing in anger. Kale appeared beside her, his hand on hers. "Focus, Alara," he said. "You are stronger than it knows." Together they pushed the darkness back. Alara felt her power expand, her confidence growing with each passing moment. For the first time, she realized that she was not just defending herself. She was shaping her destiny, confronting the forces that had tried to control her life. When the shadows finally vanished, the chamber was silent. Alara's breathing was heavy, but her eyes shone with determination. She had faced the darkness and survived. She had taken a step toward embracing her true self. Kale studied her, a rare smile touching his lips. "You are ready for the next stage," he said. "But remember, this is only the beginning. The king's curse is powerful, and there are those who will stop at nothing to prevent your rise. You must be vigilant, and you must trust yourself completely." Alara nodded. Fear still lingered, but it was now tempered with courage. She had faced shadows, discovered her power, and begun to understand her destiny. She would not run, she would not hide. She would confront whatever came, and she would survive, because she was not weak. She was powerful. She was the heir, and the kingdom would soon remember her name. The castle was quiet as dawn broke over the kingdom. Mist curled along the stone walls, and the first rays of sunlight illuminated the towering spires. But the calm was only an illusion. Alara could feel it in her bones, the tension, the danger, the pulse of magic in the air. The king's curse had grown stronger over centuries, but she had grown stronger too. And today, everything would change. Alara stood in the high tower, her cloak flowing around her like liquid shadow. Kale stood beside her, silent and steady, his sharp eyes scanning the horizon. Together, they were a single force of determination and courage. "You are ready," Kale said quietly. "But remember, the king will test everything. Your strength, your courage, your heart." Alara nodded, her hands trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the surge of energy coursing through her. For years, she had believed herself weak, clumsy, and fragile. But now she knew the truth. She was not only the heir, she was a force the kingdom could not ignore. Below, the castle corridors were alive with whispers. Courtiers and guards murmured about the hidden heir who had returned, the girl who had grown strong in secret, and the magic that pulsed in her veins. Some were afraid, some curious, but all knew that change was coming. Alara descended the spiral staircase with Kale, the golden light of dawn spilling over them. Every step she took felt purposeful, every breath steady. The power within her was no longer something to fear. It was part of her, flowing naturally, harmonizing with her mind and heart. At the castle's grand hall, the king awaited. He sat on a throne carved from dark stone, a crown of twisted metal atop his head. His presence was overwhelming, a mixture of authority, fear, and something older, an unnatural power that had kept him alive far longer than any human should live. "Alara," the king said, his voice deep and echoing. "So the child awakens. I have watched you grow, hidden and weak. But now you think you can challenge me." Alara took a deep breath, feeling Kale's hand brush hers. "I am not weak," she said, her voice clear and steady. "I am the heir, and I will not allow your curse to harm this kingdom any longer." The king's eyes narrowed and the room seemed to darken. Shadows swirled around him like living creatures. "You are strong," he said, "but power alone will not defeat me. Only love and courage can undo what I have bound." Alara's mind raced. She thought of Kale, of the bond they had built, the trust, the guidance, the quiet moments that had strengthened her. She realized that it was not just her magic that could break the curse. It was the connection she had found, the trust she had learned to place in another. The king rose from his throne, the shadows gathering at his feet, forming twisting shapes that threatened to engulf the hall. "Then let us see if your courage matches your words," he said. Alara stepped forward. She raised her hands, summoning the energy that had been growing within her for weeks. Light poured from her fingertips, golden and pure, pushing against the darkness. She felt Kale at her side, his strength and calm anchoring her, and together their energies intertwined, amplifying her power. The shadows lashed out, but Alara did not falter. She focused, letting her magic flow freely, forming a protective barrier around herself and Kale. The king's power clashed with hers, filling the hall with flashes of light and bursts of energy. "You are strong," the king said again, voice tinged with surprise. "But can you control what you feel? Can you trust the heart that guides your magic?" Alara's gaze met Kale's. In that moment she understood. Magic alone could not break the curse. It was trust, courage, and love, the unbreakable bonds between them, that would tip the balance. She let herself feel it fully. The warmth of Kale's presence, the belief in herself, and the memory of her mother's courage. With a deep, steadying breath, she unleashed her power, not just as light or energy, but as pure intention. The magic wrapped around the shadows, not destroying them but transforming them. The dark energy of the king's curse began to unravel, cracking and splitting under the force of Alara's light. The king staggered, his control faltering. "Impossible!" he shouted. "No one can undo this curse." Alara advanced, her hands glowing brighter than ever. "I am not just anyone," she said. "I am the heir, and your time of fear and control is over." The final clash of energy lit the hall, and the king's shadows shattered, dissipating into nothingness. The dark crown he wore crumbled to dust, and with it, the centuries-long curse that had bound the kingdom. A profound silence fell over the hall, followed by a calm unlike any Alara had ever felt. She lowered her hands, breathing heavily, her body buzzing with power, relief, and triumph. Kale stepped closer, his eyes filled with pride and something deeper, an unspoken emotion that mirrored her own. The king slumped to his knees, weakened not by destruction but by release. The curse that had held him and the kingdom in fear was gone. "You have defeated me," he whispered. Alara looked at him, her eyes steady and compassionate. "I did not defeat you," she said. "I freed us all, including you." For the first time in centuries, the king's eyes softened and he bowed his head in acknowledgement. The kingdom, once shadowed by fear, now glimmered with possibility. The courtiers, guards, and servants watched in awe as Alara, the hidden heir, stood tall and radiant. Later, in the quiet of the castle courtyard, Alara and Kale walked together. The first light of dawn bathed the garden in gold, and the silver leaves shimmered, reminding her of the forest where her journey had begun. "You have done it," Kale said softly. "You have not only awakened your power, but you have brought hope back to this kingdom." Alara smiled, a mix of relief and quiet joy. "I could not have done it without you," she said. "You guided me, believed in me, and kept me safe." Kale's eyes softened. "And you have taught me to trust again," he said. "I have seen your strength, your heart, and it has changed me." A gentle breeze passed through the garden, and for a moment all was still. The world felt alive, full of possibility. Alara knew that challenges would come again, but for now she allowed herself to savor the victory, the freedom, the clarity, the connection she had found. That night in her chamber, Alara held the golden crown of her mother, placing it gently upon her head. It fit perfectly, as though it had been waiting for her all along. She looked into the mirror and saw herself, not the weak, sickly girl she had once believed she was, but a strong, confident heir, radiant with power and hope. Kale appeared quietly in the doorway. "You are ready," he said, a faint smile on his lips, "for the kingdom, for the people, and for yourself." Alara turned to him, her eyes filled with gratitude and something deeper. "And for us," she said softly. Kale's hand brushed hers, and in that simple touch a promise was made, not just of protection, but of trust, respect, and a bond that would endure. The kingdom began to heal. The curse had been broken, the shadows lifted, and the people could finally see the dawn of a new era. Alara's journey from a weak, sickly girl to a powerful heir was complete, but her story, like all great stories, was only beginning. She had discovered the truth of her heritage, the depth of her power, and the strength of her heart. And as she looked out over the kingdom from the castle's highest tower, Kale at her side, she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She would face whatever came next with courage, with hope, and with the knowledge that she was never alone. Because she was Alara, the heir of light and shadow, the girl who had been hidden and poisoned, and now the queen who would lead her people into a future filled with possibility. The kingdom had remembered her name, and she would make sure it was remembered for generations to come.